Hey all, welcome back to the digital fabrication tutorials for Grasshopper and Rhino. If you remember, this is sort of where we left off on the last one. That was our first video. It sort of walked through how to use the interface of Rhino and some of Grasshopper, just a little bit of light math, and the graph mapper. And together we were able to create something that could undulate or change parametrically as sort of a surface. And we're going to go through more of the same, or sort of a development of these skills in today's concept. But quickly, I just want to go through a couple of things that throughout the class, some people had me show them, and adds to sort of a level of development that you can apply to your surface. That might make it a little more interesting, or something more along the line, and allow you to express yourself a way that you were considering. So the first of these tools I want to go through and show, it's called the paneling tools, or yeah. So that's in this plugin called Lunchbox. So Lunchbox is installed on all of the computers in the Bridge Lab and in Chalmers where we operate our class, but it's a free plugin to download for Grasshopper, which comes free with Rhino if you're trying to do that on your own. And there are a bunch of different sort of ways to manipulate data, but also surfaces. So one of these, you can use these in order to create sort of a structure on top of a surface. Here, I'll show you this one. So this is like a truss system. So right now we're going to plug in our surface, and then we're going to go in and we're going to add our U divisions. I'm going to double click this and turn it into a number, so that I can just drag it across the rest of the canvas for Rhino. This is a nice, really easy way for you to be able to sort of move things and not have to reconnect them again later. U division, and see if that'll work. So this goes in and it creates sort of this system of points. Now if I wanted to have it offset and turn into like a space frame, I can offset one surface from another. Say I want to offset this surface, and the distance would be 0.25 inches. I think that's right now we're in feet, so I can actually modify that real fast. I want this to be in inches. Actually. So just how I did that was I right-clicked on the inches, hit unit settings, and then this window pops open. I'm going to change it to inches, or I'm going to, change it to feet or inches real fast. I can hit OK. But I actually wanted to scale the model, so I'm going to try this one more time. Because right now it's 1.5 feet, and I actually want it to be 18 inches. So if I want to scale it by 12, and the answer is yes. So right now it is, or it should be 18 by 18. So now we're looking at something that's a little more dynamic. So this was a baked version that we had earlier. I'm going to go back in here. We had something that adjusted the amplitude. I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to change this, or I'm going to swap it so that it's not at such a low value. I'm going to move this all the way up to something like 3 or 2. 2 is probably good. So now we're in the same sort of dynamic range as we were with the other one. I can come back here, connect my slider. It says 0.25 inches, so that'll be a decent amount. Or maybe I up this all the way to 1 and say this is the surface, the second surface that we want to create a structure between. And now, because we have so much more geometry that we're looking at, I'm just going to hover over these. I'm going to hide them by right-clicking on the canvas and turning the preview off. So now, as you can see, we sort of have this set of, structural lines or curves coming off of the surface, and I'm going to pipe those. So I'm going to type in pipe, and that's basically just going to create a cylinder around these lines. So these are the primary lines. These are the curves. I'm going to hold shift, connect in another set of curves, and then I'm going to change the radius that these things are being piped to like 0.125 or 0.0625. And now it's just calculating. So now if I turn this off, you can see that we just have this sort of web system. I can plug in these web lines too. And what it'll do is it'll create this structural system across the entire surface. Sometimes it takes a long time to calculate, but yeah, there you can see it. It's a really nice tool for creating quick mock-ups of buildings and structural systems if you're trying to do something like that. So just something interesting to think about. Another one a little less complicated you can do is if you just want to panel it. So you can do triangular panels. And then I can take the first surface that I plugged in, so I'll just hit Shift and Command, and I'm going to, or Shift and Control. I'm going to drag. Shift Option maybe? I don't know. I don't know how to do this on my Mac. But basically I'm going to drag this line and plug it into surface. And I'll drag our UV coordinates and plug them in appropriately. I'm going to delete this because it's just getting in the way now. Closer to the rest of the script. So triangular panels creates sort of like a low poly count version of the surface, or approximates the curvature. And it's just another way of sort of expressing the same thing. It's taking your surface and triangulating it, or cutting it or into quadrants or pieces in a different way. So these paneling systems or these structure systems are a really nice way to take something that's like a curvilinear surface and approximate it or triangulate it and turn it into something that's not so smooth geometry if you want to go along that route. So just another way to maybe sort of express how you're doing something, and it's a nice way to start. And consider these tools the next time you're trying to sort of do something interesting to this surface that you've created. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into assignment 2 and how we're going to work on that. So I'm going to delete this. It's unnecessary. We don't need it right now. And actually, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this surface. So, but I am going to keep these 2 points. Okay, so right now, after you've deleted your registered geometry that sort of runs the Grasshopper definition that we've built over time, a lot of things are going to turn orange. Okay, so don't worry about that. That's supposed to happen. It's just sort of missing some of the stuff that it wants to use in order to run the script. Okay, so that sort of hopefully clears things up a little bit. Now we're going to jump into sort of registering more geometry. Okay, so I'm going to move these 2 points. You guys can see I have gumball on. That's a really nice way to start. I always like it because it makes moving these points around really easy and quick. And then I'm going to move these just 3-dimensionally. You guys don't have to do these yet. You can just sort of leave things where you want to, but I think I'll forget later, so I'm just going to move them now. Okay, so we're going to start by drawing. We're going to start by drawing a circle, and I'm going to draw a circle starting at my origin. So I'm going to type 0, 0, 0 and hit enter. And now what I'm doing is I'm approximating the radius of this thing. So if I have a number that I want to set it for, say 4 or 5, I can just type that, and that'll be in inches because I reset my units to inches at the start of this tutorial, remember. So I want my radius to be 3 inches. Okay, so now we're looking at this curve. All right, and I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to hit Command C on my computer, or Control C, and I'm going to paste it again. So I'm going to hit Control V, and that just pastes a copy of it into place. So now if I click on it, you can see that I have 2 in the same spot. I'm going to pick one of them. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to move it vertically. So this blue arrow represents the z-axis, right? So now I have 2 curves. But what if I want more? So I can just I can select over them again. My mouse is killing me today. Control C, Control V. I'm going to move this up one more time. So now I have sort of this array of circles. Okay. Now we're going to use a new command in Rhino that we haven't used before, but it's a simpler way of doing what we did in this last exercise. So in the last one, we created a surface in Rhino and then we divided it. But instead, in this tutorial, we're going to create the surface in Grasshopper. So all you have to do is you can double click on your canvas and type curve, right? And that's going to register one of these, so I'm going to do it 4 times. Over here, I want to copy that, paste it, paste it, paste it. I'm going to just sort of line these up, and then I'm going to click on one of these, set one curve, click on the next one, set one curve. Now, it's important to note that I could just do all of these with one curve module. So I could actually just go in, I could select all of these curves, like so. My keyboard or my mouse isn't letting me do that. And then I can right click on curve and I could hit set multiple curves, and that would work. So now I have 4 curves registered in this one like block. But instead I just want to use one at a time, and that'll become more apparent later, but it's just for the sake of controlling the script a little more if you've never used Rhino or Grasshopper before. Okay, so now I'm going to type a new command. It's called loft. Okay, so this makes it pretty obvious because we have full names on, but basically what it's asking for is plugging in some curves to create a surface between. That's what loft does. So right now it's orange because it's not running on anything. So I'm going to take one curve and plug it in, and then I'm going to take the next curve and plug it in, and then the one after that and plug it in, and then the same thing. Now it's important to note that if you select these in any order, it'll loft it in the order that you connect them. So if instead of having this 1 second, right, I can disconnect that one, and I wanted to have this one, well now it's going all the way down to, from this one, this first curve, it's going down to here, and then it's drawing this one because I connected it after that, and because I connected this last, the surface is doubling back up and coming back into this curve here. So just something to consider. Actually I want to redo that. Over here I want to reconnect those. So now you have this cylinder. Well, the cylinder's kind of boring, I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to use and drag on these gumball tools. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to scale this circle. So I'm going to scale it. And now, as you can see, it's lofting through these different diameter circles, and it's creating different types of shapes. I think I'm going to go with something like this. Assignment 2, if you haven't been told yet, is a light. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be buying hardware from Home Depot, and we're going to be cutting these sort of rings on a laser cutter and stacking them. And then after that, we're going to put our hardware inside of this shape that we make in Grasshopper and laser cut, and then use that as a light. So I think I want to go with something, and I can skew it in one direction too. So just something to consider. Just this alone you can use to create an interesting shape, and you can play with the corrugation and the cardboard. But I'm going to go with something like that. That's my plan for now. And then I think don't try and overcomplicate it too much because we're about to make it a little bit crazy. So because we need an inside and we need an outside in order to have like one ring get cut out, we need two edges. I'm going to offset this surface. So here's our lofted surface, and we can plug that in. And then I want to offset it a distance. So I'm going to actually create a slider. I think 0.5 or a ½ inch would be just about perfect. And now we have a surface that's offset from another surface. So we have our first, and then we have our second. Pretty straightforward, not too bad so far. And then we're actually just going to use the definition we made in the last tutorial, and we're going to plug in this new offset surface as the surface that we want to divide and alter. So we can do that, and that's pretty straightforward. So all you have to do is delete this surface that isn't registered anymore. FN delete on math. And because we still have these 2 points, right? Well, I guess that one, I don't know what just happened there, but we still have these 2 points, and we can move them around, right? I'm going to put it all the way over here with our driving geometry, and I'm going to move this slider, right? So that's the number of points we're dividing our surface with. So now I can just connect these two together, and let's see what happens. Well, I have preview turned off at the end, so if I turn this back on, weird, right? So basically what it's doing is it's moving this surface across this horizontal grid upwards or downwards. Well, because the surface is a 3D, that's not really going to help us that much. So instead, we can go back here and we can say, okay, well, this is where it's moving our surface up and down. This is where the vertical shift comes from. But what if we want each one of these points, I'm going to turn select on. So what if we want each one of these points, instead of being moved up and down, right, to be moved away or closer to the surface, all right? And I realize I've been saying all right a lot, so I'll quit that. I'm sorry. There's actually an easy way to do that instead of trying to sort of evaluate the surface at every single point, and that's going to get into something we call surface normals. So this divide surface parameter is actually really, really nice because it takes a surface, you can plug in a U and a V count, which is the number of, or the U and the V is the number of points you have going around and the number of points you have going up and down. It's sort of like longitude and latitude sort of geographical coordinates, but it's very different. It's just a way to think about it. But you can also take these normals, okay? So I'm going to take that and I'm going to plug it in instead of having a Z. Okay, FN delete. So now you can see that these points are being altered around the surface, right? So they're being moved out or closer to, away. And you can see this because I'm going to turn off preview. And we're going to adjust our wave system here, right? and you can see that it's creating a wave around these two different points. So maybe it'll be easier if I just delete one of these. I'm going to move this one down to make it a little more obvious. So right now, this point is creating a ripple away from itself on the surface. You can see sort of the cavity that it's pushing. This is how you use surface normals in order to alter the distance of a point away from an original surface. So you can see the original surface here, that's this one, and then you can see sort of the offset. And if we want to go back in here, we can reduce the amount of offset by moving the graph closer to the bottom. And because we already have sort of a given distance away, you know, we can use this original surface and we can use this new one, and those can be the edges of the surface that we want. So this is a really nice way to go through and look at how to use surface normals, and also this is the script we originally had in order to just simply create like a organic looking form. Like I said, you can use this graph mapper. You can even, you know, if again you up the frequency of it, the sinusoidal wave higher than the frequency of the UV grid, you have interesting like disruptions that start to happen. But you know, we don't necessarily need to do that. Like I was showing you before, if we wanted to go back in and we wanted to use that paneling tool, we can do that too. So I'm going to plug in triangle panels B, and this is the surface we want to approximate. Look, it's already doing that, but we want to have it match with the UV grid that we were using before. So I have this number slider down here that we can do. Remember, I saved the number of UV points from that slider, so I can just sort of up the number there, and as you can see, it's approximating the surface. So it's a really interesting way in order to start getting into looking at the surface and what you can do with tools, not just on a flat surface, but in 3D as well. Yeah, so I'm going to hide that, I'm going to delete it, and then I'm just going to bake out a couple of different versions of this. So here's your first point, right? And I want to have a couple more points, so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it again. I'll move this one like over here. Copy that. I'm going to paste it again. Move that one like down here somewhere. And I'll copy that and paste it one more time. So right now we have 4 points. I think that is plenty. And you can see if you move this point too, it shifts how the surface responds to it, which is really, really nice. I think it makes for like a very interesting definition. It's kind of like if you have the moon sort of orbiting the Earth and you're looking at sort of tidal forces on the water and where there's going to be a lot and where there's going to be a little. So now I'm going to copy this, paste it, copy it, paste it. And now I have to connect these, right? So I already have that point, so I'm going to just click on this. I'm going to hit set one point. Click on this one over here. I'm going to hit set one point. Click on this one over here. Set one point. And now I need to plug in this geometry to the script. Oh, where did that go? That was super weird. I guess just a quick Grasshopper thing, but if you're ever lost, you can right-click on this, or you can middle-click on the canvas and ask for a map or navigate, and it'll take you back to where you want to be. So I'm going to zoom back in. I'll hold Shift, drag this, connect it in with the rest of these. Same thing with this one. And now we sort of have this shape that we can play with. Things really start to get strange and interesting. So I think that's where we're going to stop. I'm actually, maybe very quickly, I'm going to show you how to contour this for the laser cutter. There's some tools in here. Let me see. I think it's in the section over here for surface analysis. I don't know. I know it exists though, so I'm going to just double click and type contour. Zoom in on that. So now it's going to ask me for a shape. I can plug this in. I know that I want the direction is the Z axis, right? Because I want sort of flat shapes, but you don't necessarily have to do it that way. So I'm just going to do it this way for me. And then I think I want the distance in between them to be probably 0.125, which would be 1/8-inch thick cardboard sheets stacked on top of each other. So now what that did is it took and it created a set of lines around the shape, and if you can see at the bottom of the shape here, if it intersects with the edge, it doesn't continue. Okay, but I can also plug in more than one shape to this. So we want more than one shape to be associated with each contour, right? We want, oh wow, that's a little annoying. I didn't plug this in at the start. Stupid. We want this original lofted surface also, because then we want that to be our inside boundary. And through this we can make sure that the shape is like able to be cut with two different lines for each layer. So I'm going to double click, I'm just going to type surface, because that's what it is. I'm going to connect our loft into the surface command. So now I can drag this to the end, and I don't have to, like scroll all the way through dragging this wire, which could be really super annoying, like my roommates. And I can hold shift and plug it in. And now it's contouring both shapes. So if I turn off the preview for everything else, which I'm going to because I think it would be helpful to visualize this. Come on. Right click, preview off. Now we're looking at just these curves, which we're going to take to the laser cutter. Okay, so we'll get into that a little bit later, and I think that'll be the next tutorial where we take these curves. I'm going to bake them to the default layer. So also, I don't think I ever really went over that in class or in the last tutorial. If you right-click on this block, like so, and you see this thing that is a sunny side up egg, you can hit bake and then use that geometry in Rhino natively. So I'm going to turn off preview, and now we're looking at this really nice, actually I really like it just as like a line thing, seeing where these lines sort of create almost a solid looking piece. And then if we really want to look at it, instead of from perspective, we can look at it from the right side. We can take these curves now. I can just sort of select one of them. And I can move them out away from the shape, and we have what is ultimately like a slice of pizza of this form. So now I'm going to go back to perspective. So yeah, that is the tutorial for today. Just going through and understanding how to make a surface. Quick recap. So I'm going to delete all of these because I don't want them. So to recap, we started with 4 curves. Okay. I put them at the origin. That doesn't really matter, but You can even offset these one from another, so maybe I want this one over here. I want this one over here. Put this one over here. I guess Cortana's here to help. So maybe I want something like that. And we can loft a surface between those things. It'll sometimes approximate, the journey that it's making. But we offset from that loft, right? So now we have a surface. We created a surface from a set of curves. And then we offset that surface with a distance. Okay, so that's to create sort of an inside and an outside to your shape. And then we use the script from the last time in order to pull points. Remember, that was one of our module, and figure out sort of what the closest one is to any given spot on that surface, and then create a wave effect radiating out from that point. So this is what that looks like. And I can go back in and I can alter this shape because it's driven by curves, and it'll adjust accordingly. Maybe I want to move this one closer. So it's a really interesting way of looking at surfaces, and then eventually how to contour those and make them into slices that you can cut on the laser cutter. You can use this for sort of any set of surfaces that you want to create in Grasshopper, but I think it's especially interesting for something that you intend to put into production. So play around with these points, play around with the parameters from the graph mapper, like so. See what you can really do in order to create something that that you've never seen before. This looks interesting. Maybe I'll bake that. Just something to think about, I guess. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I'll have another one next week on how to take these contour lines, and we're going to move them on this grid so that each one is in its own space, and then you can take it and arrange them into a sheet that you're going to cut on the laser cutter. So I'll walk you through that process. But for now, this has been tutorial number 2 on surface manipulation, surface normals, and lofting in Grasshopper. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Email me if you have any questions. My email is on the syllabus. And don't feel any hesitation to contact me if you're curious about using any of those paneling tools or any other sort of different manipulation of this surface in order to create something. So anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know if you have any questions. Don't hesitate to ask. Have a great week, and talk to you next time.